I called my boyfriend a useless piece of furniture in a text to my trainer. He saw it. The living room feels huge now, hollowed out. The only thing left of him is the echo of his last words. I saw it, Saren, we're done. That's all he said. No yelling, no tears, just that, and then the soft click of the front door closing behind him. His name is Felix. He's a data analyst, which is probably all you need to know. For 3 years, he was God. How do I even describe him? He was like a comfortable wool blanket. Warm, predictable, safe. He never made my heart race, but he made the world feel quiet. And for a long time, that was exactly what I wanted. It was good. It was easy, you know. The kind of comfortable that settles into your bones. He wasn't the guy who'd surprise me with a spontaneous trip to Italy, but he was the guy who'd remember I was out of my favorite oat milk and pick it up on his way home without me asking. We had our routines. Sunday mornings with the crossword, arguing about movies on Tuesday nights, the quiet way he'd put his hand on my back when we were walking through a crowd. It was a life built on small, sturdy things. But then, I don't know, something shifted in the last 6 months. Or maybe it wasn't a shift, maybe it was more like a slow, creeping rot that started inside me. My friends, God, my friends. I swear to God, our group chat became my personal hell. It was like every week someone was posting a life update that made my own feel so beige. So small, I remember this one brunch, it was like a punch to the gut. Amelia was talking about winning some huge case at her law firm. Chloe was basically just flashing her new engagement ring, you know, the kind that could blind you from space, talking about wedding venues in wine country. And then just video called in from Lisbon, tanned and laughing with the ocean behind her. And I'm just sitting there sipping my mimosa with nothing to add. What was I going to say? Oh, me. Well, Felix and I finally finished that 1,000-piece puzzle of a Monet painting. It was really challenging. I could feel their pity, or maybe I was just imagining it, but it felt real. It felt like they were all moving forward, collecting these bright, shiny moments, and I was just standing still. I'd come home from those nights out, buzzing with this toxic mix of jealousy and anxiety, and the silence in our apartment that once felt peaceful would just feel deafening. I'd find Felix on the couch, so completely content, watching some documentary about the history of concrete or meticulously organizing his collection of vintage sci-fi paperbacks. He wasn't doing anything wrong, that's the insane part, but I'd look at him and all I could see was a closed loop, a life with no surprises. His stability, the very thing I once craved, started to feel like an anchor. Not the good kind that keeps you safe in a storm, you know? The kind that holds you at the bottom of the harbor while all the other ships sail away. I'd lie in bed next to him while he slept, the screen of my phone lighting up my face as I scrolled endlessly through other people's perfect lives, and I just felt this desperate, clawing need for something to prove I wasn't just settling. A sign that I was still interesting, that I hadn't just faded into the background of my own life. It's so stupid, right? I had a good man, a good, stable life. But I wanted a good story. And Felix, my kind, reliable Felix, just didn't feel like a good story anymore. So I did what any sane person with a creeping sense of existential dread does. I joined a ridiculously expensive gym. The kind with eucalyptus-infused towels and smoothies that cost more than a full meal. It was my attempt to inject some, I don't know, glamour into my routine. A place where I could sweat out my insecurities, and that's where I met Knox. Knox was my personal trainer, and of course he was exactly the kind of guy you'd picture. Young, sculpted, with that easy, sun-kissed confidence that comes from being physically perfect. He had a tattoo peeking out from the sleeve of his tight shirt, and a smile that was both encouraging and a little bit predatory. He'd laugh at my jokes, his eyes would linger a little too long when I was holding a plank, and he'd say things like, "You're stronger than you think, Saren," while lightly touching my arm to correct my form. It was textbook pathetic, I know. But God, it was like a drug. After months of feeling invisible, his attention felt like a spotlight. It started small, just gym talk, then we started texting. Little things like him sending a "you're gonna be sore tomorrow" winking face message, or me sending a picture of a donut with the caption, "Don't tell my trainer." It was harmless, or at least that's what I told myself. It was my little secret, my little ego boost. It was a space where I wasn't Felix's girlfriend, I was just Saren, a version of Saren who was witty and desirable and, you know, still in the game. The whole thing was a performance. I was curating a version of my life for him, making it sound more exciting, more untethered. I'd conveniently leave Felix out of my weekend stories or refer to him in vague, dismissive ways. I needed Knox to see me as this independent, cool woman, not someone who spent her Friday nights alphabetizing her spice rack with her boyfriend. It was like I was method acting for an audience of one, and the role was woman who has her shit together. The fatal blow, the moment that I can now see was the beginning of the end, happened on a Tuesday. I was feeling particularly down after another friend announced her pregnancy in the group chat. The notifications felt like tiny, cheerful daggers. I went to the gym and pushed myself harder than usual, fueled by a sour mix of envy and self-pity. Knox was laying the charm on thick, telling me I had a fire in me today. Later that day, when I was home alone, he texted me, "Seriously, how are you single? You're way too cool." My fingers hovered over the keyboard. A normal, happy person would have just said, "Haha, I'm not." But I wasn't normal or happy. I was a black hole of insecurity, and his question was the validation I was starving for. Saying I had a boyfriend felt like admitting defeat. It felt like saying, "Actually, I'm not cool, I'm just part of a comfortable, boring pair." So I didn't. That wasn't part of the story I was telling. I typed back, "I'm not technically." I watched the little dots as he typed his reply. The anticipation was sickeningly sweet. Technically. What's that mean, lol? And this is where I really, truly became the villain of my own story. I looked around my quiet apartment, at the neat stacks of books Felix had left on the coffee table, at the life we had built that suddenly felt like a cage. And I wrote the sentence that would detonate everything. I wrote it with a casual cruelty I didn't even know I possessed. "Oh, him," I typed, the words feeling clever and detached on my screen. "He's sweet, but honestly, it's like having a really comfortable but useless piece of furniture, you know." I even added a laughing crying emoji and emojis. I thought I sounded so breezy, so effortlessly cool, like a girl from a movie who has her life figured out. I hit send, got a "Elmow I get that back from Knox," and felt a disgusting little thrill. For a few minutes in the fake, digital world of that text exchange, I wasn't boring Saren, I was someone else. I had no idea that I was just a pathetic woman typing out her own death sentence. That night everything was normal, or what passed for normal. I made dinner, Felix got home from work, kissed me on the forehead, and asked about my day. I mumbled something about a tough workout. We ate, watched some show he liked, and I felt a twinge of something, guilt maybe, but I pushed it down. It was just a stupid text. It didn't mean anything, right? It was just words. I went to take a shower, letting the hot water wash away the grime of the gym, and I hoped the sliminess I felt clinging to my conscience. I took my time, enjoying the steam, completely oblivious. When I came out, wrapped in a towel with my hair dripping, the scene in the living room stopped my heart. Felix was sitting on the couch, perfectly still, but he wasn't watching TV. He was just staring at the blank screen, and on the coffee table in front of him, face up and glowing, was my phone. My heart hammered against my ribs. No, 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 my Apple Watch. The messages sync automatically. I never turn it off. I'd been so careless, so stupidly, arrogantly careless. The screen was lit up with my conversation with Knox, and there it was, my last message, sitting there like a verdict. Like having a really comfortable but useless piece of furniture, you know. Face with tears of joy. The air in the room was thick, suffocating. He didn't look at me when I walked in. He just kept his eyes fixed on the dark television screen as if he was watching a movie only he could see. His whole body was rigid. I could see the line of his jaw tight and hard. "Felix?" My voice was a pathetic little squeak. He didn't move for a long moment. Then slowly he turned his head and looked at me. And his eyes, God, his eyes. There was no anger, no fire, just nothing. They were completely empty. It was like looking at a stranger. It was the look you'd give a piece of trash on the sidewalk, something you register for a second before looking away, completely devoid of emotion. I started, my mind racing, trying to find the words, any words to fix this. "Felix, it was a joke. It was a stupid, dumb joke. It's not what it looks like." He just kept looking at me with those dead eyes. He didn't blink. He let my pathetic excuses hang in the air and rot. Then, in a voice that was terrifyingly calm, a voice I had never heard before, he said it. "I saw it, Saren." He stood up, his movements stiff and deliberate. He walked past me towards the bedroom, not even brushing against me. "We're done." That was it. There was no room for argument in his tone. It wasn't a threat or a negotiation. It was a statement of fact. Like saying the sky is blue, he has this core of principle in him. I always knew it was there, I just never thought I'd be on the wrong side of it. He doesn't do second chances for things like this. For him, respect isn't a bonus, it's the entire foundation. And I hadn't just cracked it, I had taken a sledgehammer to it, laughing while I did. He packed a bag that night, just the essentials. He moved with a chilling efficiency, like he was following a pre-written script. I just stood in the doorway of the bedroom, wrapped in my stupid towel, shivering, trying to form sentences that kept dying in my throat. "Felix, please," I'd start, but the words would just turn to ash. "Let's just talk about this." He didn't even acknowledge me. It was like I had become a ghost in my own home. He zipped his bag, walked to the front door, put on his shoes, and left. The click of the lock was the loudest sound I'd ever heard. The next morning, I woke up with a jolt, thinking it was all a nightmare, but the empty space in the bed beside me was cold. I grabbed my phone, my hands shaking, and tried to call him. It went straight to voicemail. I tried to text him, a long, rambling paragraph full of apologies and explanations. The message wouldn't deliver, green bubble, blocked, panic, cold and sharp, clawed its way up my throat. I went to Instagram, I couldn't find his profile. I typed his name into the search bar again and again, thinking I'd made a typo. Nothing, Facebook the same, it was a digital execution. In the space of a few hours, he had systematically and completely erased me from his life. A person I had shared a bed with, a life with for 3 years had just vanished. My first coherent thought was to call Amelia. We were supposed to be best friends. I called her, my voice cracking, a mess of sobs and incoherent explanations. I told her what happened, framing it, of course, in the most favorable light possible for myself. There was a long silence on the other end of the line. It was a heavy, awkward silence. Wow, she finally said, her voice was flat. Saren, that's really rough. Can you talk to him, I begged. Can you just tell him I'm a mess, that I'll do anything? Another pause. I don't know if I should get in the middle of this, she said, and the carefully neutral tone was worse than any accusation. It's really between you two, you know? I knew what she wasn't saying, she was on his side. The calls to my other friends went pretty much the same way, awkward silences. Vague promises to see what I can do that I knew were empty. Their distancing was polite, but it was absolute. They weren't just friends with me, they were friends with us. And I had just proven myself to be the unstable, untrustworthy half of that equation. In my desperate need to look cool and desirable to the outside world, I had made myself a social pariah. In a final, pathetic act of desperation, I texted Knox, "Hey, crazy thing, my boyfriend and I broke up." I stared at the screen, waiting for a reply that felt like it took hours. Finally it came, "Oh wow, sorry to hear that, hope you're okay." That was it, no follow-up, no want to talk about it. Just the kind of polite, sterile response you'd give to a stranger. The guy whose fleeting validation I had valued more than my 3-year relationship didn't give a damn. The charm I thought I had, the connection I thought I'd built, it was nothing. It was a transaction, and our business was concluded. Weeks have passed. Or maybe it's a month, I don't know. The days just sort of bleed into each other in a gray, meaningless haze. The apartment is clean, too clean. I scrub things that are already spotless just to have something to do with my hands. But I can't get rid of the silence, it's a physical presence now. It sits in the empty chair at the dinner table. It lies on his side of the bed. Last week, I was trying to do a massive clear out, a desperate attempt to, reclaim my space, or whatever bullshit the self-help articles tell you to do. I was in our closet, pulling down old winter clothes, when my hand brushed against a box on the top shelf I'd never seen before. It was just a plain cardboard box tucked away behind his ski jacket. My heart started to pound. I pulled it down and opened it. Inside, nestled in tissue paper, was a full professional set of watercolor paints, the expensive German kind I'd pointed out in an art store window months ago. I'd mentioned it once, just a passing comment about how I wished I had time to get back into painting, but that the supplies were just too much of a splurge. Underneath the paints was a small portfolio of high-grade watercolor paper and a set of sable brushes. And under all of that, there was an envelope. With trembling fingers, I opened it. Inside were 2 tickets to a special exhibition at the City Gallery for a painter I loved. The date on the tickets was for our anniversary. It was still 2 weeks away. I just sank to the floor of the closet, the paint set in my lap, and I finally broke. Not the loud, screaming sobs from the first few nights, but a silent, gut-wrenching weeping that felt like it was tearing me apart from the inside. He remembered. He'd listened to my silly, throwaway comment about a dream I'd long since abandoned, and he had taken it seriously. He was planning to give me a piece of my old self back. While I was out chasing cheap validation from a stranger, he was quietly tending to the parts of me I had forgotten. The useless piece of furniture was building a future I was too blind and stupid to see. That discovery didn't fix anything, it just twisted the knife. Now there's only one routine left in my life. I have a new Instagram account, a burner with no name and no followers. It's the first thing I check in the morning and the last thing I look at before I fall into a restless sleep. I look at Felix's profile. He hasn't blocked this new account because he has no idea it's me. His profile is public, he's not posting anything dramatic. There's no new girl, no vengeful, look how great my life is now posts. It's almost worse, it's just normal. A picture of a sunset from a hike with his friends, a close-up shot of a stray cat he's been feeding in his new neighborhood, a photo of a book he's reading at a coffee shop. He's just living his life, a quiet, calm, decent life, the life we were supposed to have, and I'm trapped on the outside, a ghost haunting the edges of his world through a glowing screen. I refresh the page again and again and again, hoping for what? I don't even know, a sign of sadness, a hint that he misses me, but there's nothing. Just the steady, peaceful rhythm of a man moving on. He's walking further and further away, and I'm stuck here, in this empty apartment, endlessly scrolling through the beautiful, simple future I burned to the ground for a joke.